The stars shone bright against the endless black of space. Captain Tae-sung Kim stood tall on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defender. His dark uniform fit neatly on his lean body as he looked at the main screen. "They're here," said Lieutenant Hannah Park. Her voice was calm, but her fingers moved quickly over her control panel. Tae-sung nodded. Right on time. The alien ship appeared first as a small dot. Then it grew larger and larger until it filled most of the view screen. It was 3 times the size of the Defender, with a hull that looked like rough stone rather than metal. Sharp points stuck out from all sides like a sea creature covered in spines. "That's not what I expected," said Hannah. Tae-sung kept his face still, not showing his surprise. This was humanity's first meeting with aliens. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. "Captain, they're sending a message," said Sumin Choi, the young communications officer. His usually cheerful face was serious now. "Put it on screen," ordered Tae-sung. The screen changed to show an alien face. It had no hair, gray-blue skin, and 4 black eyes that blinked at different times. Its mouth was wide with 2 rows of sharp teeth. "I am High Commander Vrax of the Yolos Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and rough. "We accept your invitation to meet." Tae-sung stepped forward. "I am Captain Tae-sung Kim of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome you to our star system and look forward to peaceful talks." Vrax made a sound like stones grinding together. Tae-sung realized it was a laugh. "Peace is for the weak, but we will talk. We have a station in the empty space between our ships. We will meet there in 3 of your Earth hours." The screen went black. "Well," said Tae-sung, letting out a breath. That could have gone worse. 2 hours later, Tae-sung sat in the shuttle with his team headed for the meeting station. Lieutenant Hannah Park sat beside him, looking at data on her tablet. Sergeant Jin-ho Lee, their best fighter, sat across from them cleaning his fingernails with a small knife. "What do we know about them?" asked Tae-sung. Hannah looked up. "Not much. They call themselves the Yolos. Their ship has weapons, but they're not aimed at us. Their technology seems about equal to ours. And they seem very friendly," Jin-ho said with a small smile. He put away his knife. The shuttle docked at the station with a gentle bump. Tae-sung stood up. "Remember," he said to his team, "we represent all of Earth today. Let's make a good first impression." The door opened with a hiss. The air from the station smelled strange, like metal and something sweet. The team walked through a short tunnel and into a large round room. 5 aliens waited for them. All were tall, about 7 feet, and had the same gray-blue skin and 4 eyes as Vrax. But unlike the screen image, now Tae-sung could see their full bodies. Each Yolos had 4 arms ending in hands with long, sharp claws. Their bodies were covered in what looked like natural armor plates. They stood like warriors, alert and ready. "Welcome," said the one in the middle. "Vrax. You are smaller than I thought you would be." Tae-sung stepped forward. "Size isn't everything." Vrax's 4 eyes blinked one after another. "True. The deadliest predators are often small." "Are humans predators, Captain Kim?" "We evolved from both hunters and gatherers," Tae-sung said carefully. "Now we're explorers and builders." "Interesting." Vrax pointed to a round table in the center of the room. "Let us talk there." They all sat down, the humans on one side, the Yolos on the other. Tae-sung noticed that the alien chairs were much sturdier than the human ones. "Why do you wear those coverings?" asked one of the other Yolos, pointing at their uniforms. "For protection, identification, and comfort," said Hannah. The Yolos looked at each other. "Your bodies have no natural armor, no weapons?" Jin-ho smiled. "We make up for it in other ways." Vrax leaned forward. "Yes, this is what interests us. Your species has no claws, no poison, no great strength or speed. Yet you have built ships that cross the stars. How did you survive long enough to do this?" "We used our minds," said Tae-sung. "We made tools and worked together." "Tools," repeated Vrax. "Yes, we saw your ship's weapons, very interesting designs." Tae-sung felt a small chill. They had not shown the defenders weapons. The YOLOs must have scanned their ship without permission. "We hope we never need to use them," said Taesung. "We come in peace." Again came that grinding laugh from Vrax. "Peace is a luxury for those who can afford it. The universe is full of dangers." "We're well aware," said Taesung. "But we prefer to make friends rather than enemies." Vrax's four eyes focused on Taesung. "Friends should know each other. We propose an exchange of knowledge, a demonstration." "What kind of demonstration?" asked Hana, her voice careful. "Combat," said Vrax. "Nothing builds respect like seeing how another fights." The room went quiet. Taesung looked at his team. Jinho's face showed no emotion, but his body had tensed slightly. Hana gave a small shake of her head. "We didn't come here to fight," said Taesung. "Not a real fight," said Vrax quickly. "A demonstration only, to show skills. We will show you ours, you will show us yours." "Like a sports match?" asked Jinho, speaking for the first time. "Yes, like your sports," said Vrax. "No one dies. Simple rules. Great honor." Taesung thought for a moment. "I will need to speak with my government." Vrax nodded. "Of course, take time, think, we will prepare a place. A moon nearby has good air for both our kinds. We can meet there in 3 days." "If my government agrees," Taesung added. "They will," said Vrax with strange certainty. "Humans are curious, yes? You will want to see how we fight. And we want to see how creatures with no natural weapons have survived so long." Back on the Defender, Taesung spoke with the Earth Council through a secure link. "They want a combat demonstration?" asked Counselor Yuna, her face worried on the screen. "Yes, but they insist it will be controlled. No deaths." "It could be a trap," said another counselor. "Possibly," said Taesung. "But I don't think so. They seem genuinely curious about us." "Just as we are about them," said Yuna. "What do you recommend, Captain?" Taesung took a deep breath. "I think we should agree. We can learn a lot about them by seeing how they fight, and we can show them that humans aren't as weak as they think." After a long talk, the council agreed. Taesung called his senior officers to the meeting room. "We need 5 volunteers," he said. "Our best." Jinho raised his hand first. "Count me in, Captain." "Are you sure?" asked Hana. "You saw their bodies. They're built like tanks with claws." Jinho smiled. "Which means they've never had to think about fighting. It's all instinct for them. That gives us an advantage." Taesung looked at his friend and best fighter. "Explain." "They've evolved as predators," said Jinho. "Everything about them, the 4 eyes for better tracking, the claws, the armor, it all says hunter. Hunters rely on instinct, they don't plan, they react." "And humans?" asked Taesung. "We hunt with our minds," said Jinho. "We set traps, we study patterns, we work together, and most importantly, we can choose when not to kill." Hana's eyes widened with understanding. "You think that's what they're really testing? Whether we kill by instinct or choice?" Jinho nodded. "I think they want to know if we're safe to be around, or if we'll turn on them someday without warning." Taesung looked out the viewport at the huge alien ship. The YOLOs were powerful and clearly warriors. If humans were going to live peacefully alongside them in the galaxy, they needed to earn respect. "Tell the High Commander we accept," said Taesung, "and start forming a team. We have 3 days to prepare." Jinho's eyes gleamed with determination. 3 days is plenty of time, Captain. We'll show them exactly what humans can do." 3 days passed quickly. The moon where the demonstration would take place hung in space like a gray pearl. Its surface was rocky with small areas of flat ground. The YOLOs had built a large circle of stones in one of these flat areas. Inside the circle, the ground was smooth and covered with a fine red sand. Jinho stood at the shuttle window looking down at the arena. "It looks like they've done this before," he said. Taesung joined him at the window. "Maybe they test all new species. They meet. Or maybe they just like to fight." said Hannah, checking her tablet one more time. The air's breathable but thin. Be careful not to move too fast, you'll get tired quickly. The team that would take part in the demonstration consisted of Jin Ho, 2 security officers named Mi Cha and Dae Jung, a pilot named Hyun, and a combat medic named Jun. All were fit and well-trained. Remember the plan, said Tae-sung as the shuttle landed near the stone circle. Watch how they fight first. Learn their patterns. Don't show all our skills at once. The team nodded. They stepped out onto the moon's surface. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making each step feel bouncy. The YOLOs were already there. About 20 of them stood on the far side of the circle. They wore no clothes except for belts holding small tools. Their natural armor plates caught the sunlight, making them shine like polished stone. High Commander Vrax stepped forward. Welcome, humans. We have prepared the testing ground. Tae-sung nodded. Thank you for hosting us, my team is ready. Vrax's mouth stretched in what might have been a smile. Good. We will demonstrate first. Then you will show your skills. The humans stood at the edge of the circle while 5 YOLOs entered the ring. 4 of them took positions at the corners. The 5th stood in the center. This is Combat Master Grax, said Vrax. He will show you how YOLOs warriors fight. Grax was taller and more muscular than the other YOLOs. His armor plates were darker, almost black, with a pattern of light gray lines running across them. His claws looked longer and sharper too. At a signal from Vrax, the 4 YOLOs in the corners attacked Grax all at once. What followed was so fast that Jin Ho could barely follow it. Grax moved like lightning. His forearms became a blur as he blocked, slashed, and knocked away his attackers. He roared with each move, a deep sound that Jin Ho could feel in his chest. One attacker jumped on Grax's back. Grax bent forward and flipped the attacker over his head. Another tried to grab his legs. Grax stomped down hard, missing the attacker, but making him roll away quickly. They're not actually trying to hurt each other, said Hannah quietly. See how they pull back their strikes at the last second? Jin Ho nodded. But look at their faces, they're not thinking. They're just reacting, all instinct. The fight lasted about 5 minutes. By the end, Grax stood tall while the other 4 YOLOs backed away, lowering their heads in what looked like respect. Vrax turned to the humans. Now you understand YOLO's combat. We are born fighters. Every child can do what you just saw. Impressive, said Tae-sung. Your people are naturally skilled. Natural, yes, said Vrax. Now show us how humans fight. Jin Ho and his team entered the circle. The red sand felt soft under their boots. They wore light protective gear that covered their chests, arms, and legs, but left their faces clear. What weapons do you use? Asked Vrax. Jin Ho looked at Tae-sung, who nodded slightly. We can fight with or without weapons, said Jin Ho. For this demonstration, we'll show both. The team began with hand-to-hand combat. They moved in slow, careful patterns at first, showing basic moves. Jin Ho and Dae Jung demonstrated a sequence of blocks and strikes. Mi Cha and Hyun showed throws and falls. Jun displayed pressure points and control holds. The YOLOs watched without expression. Jin Ho could see they were not impressed. You move so carefully, said Vrax at last. Where is your power? Your instinct? We're just warming up, said Jin Ho. Now we'll show you how humans really fight. He signaled to his team. They moved into a formation with Jin Ho in the center. What came next was a carefully planned sequence that looked like wild fighting to the untrained eye. The team attacked Jin Ho from all sides. He blocked, dodged, and counterattacked in a series of fluid movements. Unlike the YOLO's fight, there was no roaring, no wasted energy. Each move flowed into the next. When Jin Ho struck, his blows were precise, targeting specific points on his teammates' bodies, points where in a real fight he could disable without killing. After several minutes, Jin Ho stood alone, while his teammates lay on the ground, pretending to be defeated. They had followed the plan perfectly. The YOLOs were silent. Then Grax stepped forward. This is not real fighting, he said, his voice deep and angry. You hold back. You do not use your true strength. Jin-Ho stood up straight. We use exactly as much strength as needed. No more, no less. Show us with weapons, demanded Grax. Show us how humans really fight. Tae-sung stepped to the edge of the circle. We agreed to a demonstration, not a real combat. Yes, said Vrax. But we must see true human abilities. How can we respect what we have not seen? Jin-Ho looked at his captain. It's okay, sir. We can show them. Tae-sung frowned but finally nodded. Be careful. The human team brought out their training weapons, shock batons that looked like short sticks but could deliver a mild electric shock. They were not dangerous but would sting enough to make a point. Again they demonstrated, showing coordinated team movements. They took turns attacking and defending, always working together. They called out to each other, giving warnings and suggestions. Left flank open. Watch your back. I've got your cover. Grax watched with growing frustration. Finally, he strode into the circle, pushing aside the other YOLOs. This is not combat, he growled. This is a dance. You do not fight like warriors. Jin-Ho stood his ground as Grax loomed over him. The alien was nearly 2 feet taller and much heavier. We fight smart, said Jin-Ho. That's how humans survived on Earth. Show me, said Grax. He pulled a metal rod from his belt. With a flick of his wrist, it extended into a staff as tall as he was. You and me, now. Hana stepped forward. That wasn't part of the agreement. I accept, said Jin-Ho before anyone could stop him. Tae-sung frowned. Sergeant, stand down. It's okay, Captain, said Jin-Ho quietly. This is why we came. They need to understand us. Tae-sung looked unhappy but nodded once. The rest of the human team left the circle, leaving Jin-Ho alone with Grax. You may use any weapon, said Grax, twirling his staff with frightening skill. Jin-Ho kept only his shock baton. It looked tiny compared to Grax's staff. Grax moved to the edge of the circle. Begin when ready. Grax didn't wait. He charged at Jin-Ho with a roar, swinging his staff in a wide arc. Jin-Ho ducked under it easily. The light gravity helped him move faster than he could on Earth. Grax spun and attacked again, and again. Each time, Jin-Ho dodged or deflected the blow with his baton. He didn't try to attack. Instead, he watched Grax's movements carefully. Fight back, demanded Grax, frustrated. I am fighting, said Jin-Ho calmly. I'm just not attacking yet. Grax let out an angry sound and lunged forward. Jin-Ho sidestepped and tapped Grax on the arm with his baton. A small spark showed where it made contact, but Grax's armor protected him from the shock. Is that all? Mocked Grax. Jin-Ho didn't answer. He continued to move around the circle, always just out of reach. Grax got angrier, and his attacks became wilder. Jin-Ho noticed that before each big swing, Grax shifted his weight to his back foot and blinked his upper right eye. After 5 minutes of this dance, Jin-Ho had seen enough. The next time Grax's eye blinked, Jin-Ho moved in instead of away. He ducked under the staff and pressed his baton against the gap between 2 armor plates near Grax's waist. This time the shock got through. Grax grunted in surprise and swung his staff down, but Jin-Ho was already gone, moving behind him. Another quick tap of the baton found another gap in the armor, near Grax's neck. Grax roared and spun wildly. His staff whooshed through empty air. Jin-Ho stayed just out of reach, waiting for his moment. When Grax's eye blinked again, Jin-Ho darted in and struck 3 times in quick succession, hitting 3 different gaps in the armor. Grax dropped to one knee, breathing hard. His 4 eyes locked onto Jin-Ho with a look of confusion. Why don't you finish me? He asked. Jin-Ho lowered his baton. Because this is just a demonstration, and because I don't need to. The circle went completely silent. Jin-Ho could feel all the YOLOs staring at him. He had just done something they didn't understand. He had chosen not to strike a final blow. Vrax stepped into the circle. Enough. We have seen much today. He looked at Jin-Ho with all 4 eyes. You fight. Strangely. We fight to win, said Jin-Ho. But we decide how and when to strike. Always. As they walked back to the shuttle, Tae-sung put a hand on Jin-ho's shoulder. "Good job," he said. "But I think you've confused them." Jin-ho nodded. "Good. Confused is better than confident. They thought they knew what we were. Now they're not so sure." On the shuttle ride back to the Defender, Hana looked troubled. "What's wrong?" asked Jin-ho. "I've been analyzing their culture from what we've seen," she said. "The YOLOs value instinct above all else. They see thinking before fighting as weakness." "But we just showed them it's a strength," said Jin-ho. "Yes," said Hana. "And that might be the problem." And the Defender hung in space, its lights glowing against the darkness. Inside, Captain Tae-sung Kim sat in his office with Lieutenant Hana Park and Sergeant Jin-ho Lee. A small hologram of the YOLO's ship floated above his desk. "They've been quiet since the demonstration," said Tae-sung. "No messages, no movement." "They're thinking," said Jin-ho. "Something they're not used to doing before a fight." Hana tapped on her tablet. "I've been studying the recordings from the combat ring. Look at this." She touched her screen, and the hologram changed to show Grax during their fight. The image froze just as Jin-ho dodged one of his attacks. "See his face?" she asked. "That's not just anger. That's fear." "Fear." Jin-ho leaned closer. "Why would he fear me? I'm half his size." "Because you were unpredictable," said Hana. "To a species that relies on instinct, something that doesn't follow natural patterns is dangerous." Tae-sung frowned. "So by showing them we can control our fighting instincts, we may have scared them," finished Hana. The room fell silent. Then the communication system beeped. "Captain," came Sumin's voice. "High Commander Vrax is requesting to speak with you." "Put him through," said Tae-sung. The hologram changed to show Vrax's four-eyed face. "Captain Kim," said the alien, "we wish to continue our cultural exchange. Our scientists have questions about human biology and behavior. We invite your science team to visit our ship." Tae-sung kept his face neutral. "That's a generous offer, High Commander. When would you like this visit to take place?" "Tomorrow," said Vrax. "We have prepared special quarters for your team. They may stay for 3 days to complete their studies." After the call ended, Tae-sung looked at his officers. "What do you think?" he asked. "It could be a trap," said Jin-ho. "Or they could be genuinely curious," said Hana. "This is a first contact situation. We should expect some awkwardness." Tae-sung nodded. "I agree, but we'll take precautions. Hana, you'll lead a small science team. Jin-ho, you'll go as security." The next day, Hana and Jin-ho boarded a shuttle with 3 scientists. The short trip to the YOLO's ship felt longer than it was. Everyone was tense. The YOLO's ship was dark, inside with red lighting that made shadows look deeper. The air smelled of metal and something sweet, just like at the first meeting. A group of YOLOs waited for them at the docking bay. "Welcome," said one with lighter-colored armor than the others. "I am Chief Scientist Zax. Please follow me." They walked through wide corridors. Jin-ho noticed that everything was built much larger than would be comfortable for humans. The ceilings were high, the doors wide, and the few pieces of furniture they passed looked heavy and solid. Zax led them to a large room filled with strange equipment. "This is our main science chamber. We have many questions about humans." "We have questions about YOLOs too," said Hana with a smile. The next few hours were filled with tests and questions. The YOLO scientists scanned the humans with various devices. They asked about Earth's gravity, air, and water. They seemed especially interested in human muscles and reflexes. "Your species is so soft," said Zax, gently touching Jin-ho's arm. "How do you survive injury?" "We heal," said Jin-ho, "and we try to avoid getting hurt in the first place." Zax's 4 eyes blinked one after another. "Yes. We saw that in the combat ring. You avoided rather than blocked." "It's more efficient," said Jin-ho. "But not instinctive," said Zax. "A YOLO's child would try to block, not dodge." While the test continued, Jin-ho noticed one of the YOLOs watching him closely. It was Grax, standing in a corner, his eyes never leaving Jin-ho. Later, the humans were shown to their quarters, a large room with beds that were too big for them. After the YOLOs left, Jin-ho checked for listening devices but found none. "What do you think they really want to know?" he asked Hana. "I'm not sure," she said. "But they're fascinated by our control. They keep asking questions about how we make decisions." One of the scientists, a biologist named Kwan, nodded. "They asked me if humans ever lose control during fighting. They seemed very interested in whether we can always stop ourselves from killing." Jin-ho thought about this. "They want to know if we're safe to be around, or if we're too dangerous to let live," said Hana quietly. On the second day, the YOLOs invited Jin-ho to observe their combat training. He followed Zax to a large room with the same red sand they had used on the moon. 20 young YOLOs were practicing fighting moves. They moved fast, striking with all four arms, roaring with each attack. Their trainer, an older YOLOs with scars on his armor, shouted commands. "Faster! Strike harder! Don't think, just hit!" Jin-ho watched carefully. The young YOLOs were strong but wild. They didn't work together. Each fought as if alone, even when they were supposed to be in teams. "What do you think of our young warriors?" asked Zax. "They're energetic," said Jin-ho diplomatically. Zax made that grinding sound that Jin-ho now recognized as laughter. "You mean they lack control?" Jin-ho smiled. "They fight differently than humans." "Show them," came a deep voice from behind. Jin-ho turned to see Grax standing there. "Show our young how humans fight," said Grax. "I want them to see." Jin-ho looked at Zax, who nodded. "It would be educational." Jin-ho stepped onto the red sand. The young YOLO stopped their practice and stared at him. He felt very small next to them. "In human combat training," Jin-ho began, "we start by learning to control ourselves, not just how to hurt others." He demonstrated a few basic moves, showing how each motion could be used to attack or defend. "Every move has a purpose," he explained. "We don't waste energy." One of the young YOLOs stepped forward. "But how do you win without power?" "By using the enemy's power against them," said Jin-ho. "Would you like to try?" The young YOLOs looked at Grax, who nodded. The trainee stepped onto the sand with Jin-ho. "Try to grab me," said Jin-ho. The young YOLOs lunged forward, all four arms reaching for Jin-ho. Jin-ho simply stepped aside and used the trainee's own momentum to guide him past. The young YOLOs stumbled and fell. "Again," said Jin-ho. This time, when the trainee lunged, Jin-ho lightly touched one of his arms, redirecting his charge. Again, the young YOLOs fell. "You see?" said Jin-ho to the watching trainees. "I didn't use strength. I used his movement." The young YOLOs looked confused. One asked, "But how do you kill your enemy this way?" Jin-ho was surprised by the question. "The goal isn't always to kill. Sometimes it's better to disable or capture." This caused a stir among the YOLOs. They spoke to each other in their own language, too fast for Jin-ho to follow. Grax stepped forward. "You fought me without killing me. Why?" Jin-ho looked up at the massive alien. "Because it wasn't necessary. We were demonstrating, not fighting for real." "But if it was real?" pressed Grax. "Would you have killed me?" Jin-ho thought carefully before answering. "Only if there was no other choice. Humans try to avoid killing when possible." "Even your enemies?" asked Grax, his voice low. "Especially our enemies," said Jin-ho. "Dead enemies can't become allies later." The room went completely silent. The YOLOs stared at Jin-ho as if he had said something shocking. Finally, Zax spoke. "This is why we wanted to study you. Humans are different from any species we have." "Met? Different how?" asked Jin-ho. "You kill with your minds, not your instincts," said Grax. "You choose when to strike and when not to. This makes you—" He searched for the word, "unpredictable." Jin-ho understood then. The YOLOs weren't studying humans out of simple curiosity. They were trying to decide if humans were a threat. That night, Jin-ho couldn't sleep. He walked around their quarters, while the others rested. Something was bothering him about the way the YOLOs had reacted to his words. Hana sat up in her bed. Can't sleep either? Jinho shook his head. Something's not right. Why are they so interested in how we control our fighting instincts? Maybe because they can't control theirs, suggested Hana. Jinho thought about this. The young trainees asked how to kill with my technique. Not how to win, but how to kill. And they seemed shocked when I said we try not to kill our enemies. Hana opened her tablet. I've been analyzing their language patterns. They use the word enemy for anyone, not of their own kind. And they have 12 different words for kill, but only 2 for friend. A warrior culture, said Jinho. More than that, said Hana. I think fighting and killing are central to how they see the world. She looked up at Jinho with worry in her eyes. And I think they're afraid of us because we don't see the world the same way. Jinho walked to the window that looked out into space. The defender was just visible, a small shape against the stars. We need to talk to the captain, he said. I think we should prepare to leave. Agreed, said Hana. First thing tomorrow. But as Jinho turned from the window, a loud alarm began to sound throughout the YOLO's ship. Taesung's face hardened. Prepare a rescue shuttle. I want a security team ready in 5 minutes. Just then the main screen lit up. High Commander Vrax's face appeared. Captain Kim, he said. I regret to inform you that there has been an incident on our ship. Your team is safe, but they must remain here until our investigation is complete. What incident? Demanded Taesung. I want to speak with Lieutenant Park immediately. That is not possible at this time, said Vrax. I suggest you remain where you are. Any approach to our ship will be considered hostile. The screen went dark. They're lying, said Taesung. Sumin, can you locate our people's position on their ship? Sumin worked at his console. The beacon signal gives a rough location. They appear to be in the lower section port side. That matches where the guest quarters should be, said Taesung. At least they're still there. What's our move, Captain? Asked the security chief. Taesung thought for a moment. We can't risk a direct assault. Their ship is much larger than ours. We need another way in. What about the shuttle that took our team over? Suggested Sumin. It's still docked to their ship. We could send a rescue team through that connection. Good. Thinking, said Taesung. But we'll need a distraction. Back on the YOLO ship, Jinho examined their quarters carefully. The door was sealed and probably guarded. The air vents were too small for even the smallest human to crawl through. The window looked out into empty space. There's no way out, said one of the scientists. There's always a way, said Jinho. We just need to think. Hana was studying her tablet. I've been reviewing the ship scans we took yesterday. Look at this. She showed Jinho a diagram of the ship's layout. The power conduits run behind this wall, she said, pointing. If we could access them, we might be able to cause a short circuit and open the door. Jinho examined the wall. We'd need tools to cut through. What about this? Quan held up a small laser tool they had used for their experiments. It's meant for cutting biological samples, but it might work on the wall material. Jinho took the tool. It's worth a try. He started cutting a small hole in the wall where Hana had indicated. The laser moved slowly through the material, which was tougher than it looked. After 10 minutes, he had made a hole big enough to see through. I can see the conduits, he said, but I'll need something to reach them. They searched their equipment and found a thin metal rod that was part of a measuring device. Jinho carefully inserted it through the hole and touched one of the power conduits. Sparks flew. The lights in their quarters flickered, then went out. Emergency lights came on, casting a dim blue glow over everything. Did it work? Asked Hana. Jinho tried the door. It was still sealed. No, he said. But maybe we caused a problem elsewhere. In the ship. As if to confirm his words, they heard shouting in the corridor outside. The sounds of running feet past their door. Something's happening, said Jinho. We need to be ready. They gathered near the door, holding whatever items might serve as weapons. The laser tool, metal rods from equipment, even a chair leg that Quan had managed to break off. Minutes passed. The shouting outside grew louder, then suddenly stopped. They heard the sound of something heavy hitting the door. Jinho motioned everyone to step back. The sound came again, louder this time. Then a third time, and the door began to bend inward. One more hit, and the door broke open. Jinho raised, his makeshift weapon, then froze in surprise. Grax stood in the doorway, his massive form filling the space. Behind him lay two unconscious Yolos guards. "Come," said Grax. "Quickly." Jinho hesitated. "Why are you helping us?" "No time," said Grax. "Your ship is attacking. We must hurry." They followed Grax through the corridors, moving quickly but trying to stay quiet. Twice they had to hide as groups of Yolos soldiers ran past. "Where are you taking us?" asked Hana. "To your shuttle," said Grax. "It is still docked." "Why help us?" Jinho asked again. Grax paused and looked down at Jinho. "Because you could have killed me but didn't. I want to understand why." They reached a junction where 4 corridors met. Grax held up his hand for them to stop. He peered around the corner, then pulled back quickly. "Guards at the docking bay," he said. "Too many to fight." "We don't need to fight them," said Jinho. "Just distract them." Grax tilted his head. "How?" Jinho looked at the pipes running along the ceiling. "Those carry fluid, right? Can they be broken?" Grax nodded. He reached up and with one powerful strike, broke a pipe. A thick, dark liquid began spraying out, covering the floor. "Now we need a spark," said Jinho. Hana held up her tablet. "Will this work?" She had removed its power cell, which was sparking slightly. "Perfect," said Jinho. He took the cell and placed it in the growing puddle of liquid, then pulled everyone back around the corner. The spark ignited the liquid. There was a whoosh as flames spread quickly across the floor and toward the docking bay. Alarms began blaring again. The guards shouted in surprise. "Now," said Grax. They ran past the distracted guards, who were trying to put out the fire. The human shuttle was just ahead, its door still open. "Thank you, Grax," said Jinho as they reached the shuttle. Grax nodded. "Go. And remember, not all Yolos think you should die." They boarded the shuttle Ku. The alarm blared loud and harsh. Red lights flashed in the corridors of the Yolos ship. Jinho and Hana rushed to wake the 3 scientists. "What's happening?" asked Quan, rubbing his eyes. "Not sure," said Jinho. "But stay close." The door to their quarters slid open. Zack stood there, all 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "You must come quickly," he said. "There is danger." They followed Zax through the corridors. Yolo soldiers ran past them carrying weapons. The ship shook slightly. "Are we under attack?" asked Hana. "Not exactly," said Zax. His voice sounded strange. "It's complicated." They entered a large room, with screens covering the walls. Each screen showed a different part of the ship. High Commander Vrax stood in the center, shouting orders to the Yolos around him. When he saw the humans, he stopped mid-sentence. "Why did you bring them here?" he demanded of Zax. "You said to keep them safe," replied Zax. "I said to keep them contained." Vrax's upper right eye twitched. Jinho tensed. Something was very wrong. He glanced at Hana, who gave a small nod. She felt it too. "High Commander," said Hana calmly. "What's happening? Can we help?" Vrax stared at her. "Help? No. This is not your concern." Another Yolos rushed into the room. "Sir, the Council is demanding answers. They say we have violated protocol by bringing the humans aboard." Vrax made an angry sound. "The Council doesn't understand. These creatures are different. They must be studied before we decide." "Decide what?" asked Jinho, though he was starting to guess. Vrax ignored him. "Zax, take them back to their quarters, post guards." "Wait," said Jinho. "We need to contact our ship. Our captain will be worried about the alarm." "No communications," said Vrax. "Not until the Council has been dealt with." As Zax led them out, Jinho whispered to Hana, "Did you bring your emergency beacon?" She nodded slightly. All EDF officers carried small devices that could send a distress signal directly to their ship. The signal couldn't carry a message, just an alert that they were in danger. Back in their quarters, Zax hesitated at the door. "I am sorry," he said. "This is not what I wanted." "What is happening, Zax?" asked Hana. "Please tell us." Zax looked over his shoulder, then stepped inside and closed the door. "There is a disagreement among our leaders," he said quietly, "about what to do with humans." "What do you mean, do with humans?" asked Quan. "Some think you are too dangerous to be allowed to develop further," said Zax. "Others like me think we can learn from you." Jinho crossed his arms. "And what does Vrax think?" "Vrax thinks you should be studied more before a decision is made, but the Council has strict rules about new species." "Rules like what?" pressed Hana. "If a species can kill by choice rather than instinct, they are considered a potential threat," said Zax. "The Council may vote to limit your development." The humans exchanged worried looks. "Limit how?" asked Jinho. "By destroying your main settlements," said Zax, as if he were discussing the weather. "Not all humans would die, just enough to set your civilization back a few hundred years." "That's monstrous," said Quan. Zax seemed surprised by the reaction. "It is mercy by our standards. The traditional response would be complete elimination." Jinho stepped forward. "Zax, you must help us contact our ship. This is a misunderstanding." "It is not," said Zax. "Your kind is truly dangerous to us. You showed it in the combat ring. You choose when to kill. This means you could choose to kill us all someday." "Or choose not to," said Hana. "That's the point. We have control." Zax shook his head. "Control can be lost. Instinct cannot." After Zax left, locking the door behind him, Jinho turned to Hana. "Use your beacon," he said. "We need to warn the captain." Hana activated the small device hidden in her uniform. A tiny light blinked green, showing the signal had been sent. "Now what?" asked one of the scientists. "Now we find a way out of here," said Jinho. On the Defender, Captain Tae-sung was already concerned. The alarm on the YOLO ship had been visible from their observation deck. When he tried to contact his team, there was no response. Their communications might be down due to the emergency, suggested his communications officer, Suman. Or they might be blocking us, said Tae-sung. Suddenly a light flashed on his control panel. "Distress beacon activated," reported Suman. "It's Lieutenant Park's signal." 3 days had passed since the Defender escaped from the YOLO ship. They had jumped to a distant part of the solar system to hide while Captain Tae-sung reported to Earth's leaders. The mood on the ship was tense. Jinho stood in the observation room, looking out at the stars. The door opened behind him and Hana walked in. "The Council is still debating," she said. "Some want to prepare for war. Others want to try talking again." Jinho shook his head. "The YOLOs don't understand talk the way we do. To them, strength is all that matters." "Not all of them," said Hana. "Grax helped us, and Zax seemed troubled by what his leaders were planning." "True," said Jinho. "There might be hope there." The ship's communication system beeped. "Captain Kim to the bridge immediately," came Suman's voice, sounding urgent. Jinho and Hana exchanged looks, then hurried to the bridge. When they arrived, Tae-sung was staring at the main screen with a grim expression. "What's wrong?" asked Jinho. "The YOLOs have found us," said Tae-sung. "Their ship just dropped out of jump 5,000 kilometers away." On the screen, the massive YOLO's ship hung against the blackness of space. It was moving slowly toward them. "Are their weapons active?" asked Hana. "No," said Suman. "And they're broadcasting a message on all frequencies." "Let's hear it," ordered Tae-sung. The screen changed to show High Commander Vrax, but he looked different now. His armor was cracked in several places, and one of his 4 eyes was swollen shut. "Captain Kim," said Vrax, "we wish to speak with you. No weapons, no tricks. Why should we trust you?" asked Tae-sung. "You held my people prisoner and planned to attack Earth." "There has been a change in leadership," said Vrax. His voice sounded tired. The council has been removed from power. I speak for all YOLOs now. Jin-Ho stepped forward. Is Grax with you? Vrax's remaining eyes blinked in surprise. Yes. He wishes to speak with you as well. Tae-sung muted the communication. What do you think? He asked his officers. It could be another trap, said the security chief. Or a genuine change, said Hana. Look at his injuries. There must have been a fight for power. I think we should talk to them, said Jin-Ho. But, carefully, invite them to meet at the neutral station where we first met. Tae-sung nodded and unmuted the communication. We will meet you at the neutral station. Bring only 5 representatives. Agreed, said Vrax. We will be there in 6 hours. The neutral station hung in space, its lights glowing against the darkness. Inside, the large round room had been prepared for the meeting. Tae-sung sat at the round table with Jin-Ho, Hana, and 2 security officers. They had arrived early to check for traps, but found none. They're docking now, reported one of the security officers, checking his tablet. Minutes later, the door opened. Vrax entered first, followed by Grax, Zax, and 2 other YOLOs that Jin-Ho didn't recognize. All showed signs of recent fighting. Cuts, bruises, and damaged armor. Thank you for meeting us, said Vrax as they sat down across from the humans. What happened on your ship? Asked Tae-sung. Vrax looked at Grax, who spoke. After helping your people escape, I was arrested for treason. But Chief Scientist Zax and others agreed with my actions. We disagreed with the Council's plan. Disagreed? How? Asked Jin-Ho. We fought, said Grax simply. Many died. But those who saw the truth won. And what truth is that? Asked Hana. That we were wrong about humans, said Zax. We misunderstood what makes you dangerous, and what makes you valuable. Vrax leaned forward. For generations, the YOLOs have believed that control of killing instinct is impossible. When we saw humans could choose when to kill and when not to, we thought it was a trick. Or worse, that you could turn your killing ability on and off like a machine. But Grax showed us otherwise, said Zax. He told us how you spared him in combat, even though you could have struck a final blow. I didn't understand it at first, said Grax, looking directly at Jin-Ho. But when I helped you escape, I felt something new. I chose not to fight the guards. I chose another path. Jin-Ho nodded slowly. You learned that having a choice is better than being controlled by instinct. Yes, said Grax. It was freedom. Vrax placed a small device on the table. It projected a hologram of Earth. We know where your world is, he said. The old council wanted to attack it, to keep humans from growing stronger. They feared what you might become. And now? Asked Tae-sung carefully. Now we wish to learn from you, said Vrax. To learn how to choose when not to kill. It is a skill the YOLOs have never developed. Zax pointed to the hologram. Your civilization has achieved great things without the natural weapons our species has. You built your world with your minds, not your claws. We want an alliance, said Vrax. Not based on fear, but on understanding. We can offer you much. Resources, technology, protection from other dangers in the galaxy. And in return? Asked Hana. Teach us to be more like you, said Grax. Help us learn control. Tae-sung looked at his officers. Jin-Ho nodded slightly. We would need guarantees of Earth's safety, said Tae-sung. Of course, said Vrax. We will keep our fleet far from your world until trust is built. We propose cultural exchanges. Small. Groups at first, then more as we learn to work together. And the council members who wanted to attack us, asked Jin-Ho. They have been removed from power, said Vrax. His tone made it clear that removed meant something final. So you killed them? Asked Hana. Vrax looked uncomfortable. Most, yes, it is our way, but some were only imprisoned. That was new for us. Jin-Ho understood what Vrax was saying. The fact that some council members had been spared was itself a sign of change, a first step toward the control that humans took for granted. It's a start, said Jin-Ho. Tae-sung stood up. I need to discuss your proposal with Earth's leaders. But speaking for myself, I believe an alliance is possible. Thank you, Captain, said Vrax, also standing. We will wait for your answer. As the meeting ended, Grax approached Jin-Ho. I have a question, he said. When we fought, you found weaknesses in my fighting style very quickly. You could have seriously injured me many times. Why didn't you? Jin-Ho looked up at the massive alien. Because the goal wasn't to hurt you. It was to learn about you and to teach you about us. Grax was silent for a moment. I think I am beginning to understand. Humans don't just choose when to kill. You choose what victory means. Jin-Ho nodded. Exactly. 1 month later, the Defender hung in orbit around Earth. A small YOLO shuttle was docked to it, the first official delegation in the new alliance. Captain Tae-sung stood in the docking bay with Jin-Ho and Hana, waiting for their guests. Are you nervous? Asked Hana. A little, admitted Jin-Ho. Teaching combat control to a species that evolved as pure predators won't be easy. If anyone can do it, you can, said Tae-sung. The shuttle door opened. Grax stepped out first, ducking, his head under the human-sized doorway. Behind him came Zax and 3 young YOLOs, students selected for the first cultural exchange program. Welcome to Earth, said Tae-sung formally. Grax made a gesture with his 4 arms, a new greeting. The YOLOs had developed specifically for humans. We are honored to be here, he said, and ready to learn. As they walked through the ship toward the shuttle that would take them to Earth's surface, one of the young YOLOs spoke to Jin-Ho. Is it true you can teach us to fight without killing? The young alien asked. I can teach you to choose, said Jin-Ho. The rest is up to you. Grax put a hand on Jin-Ho's shoulder, gently, careful of his strength. That is the greatest lesson we could learn, he said. In our history, we have conquered many worlds, but we have never had true allies because we could not control our instincts. And now, asked Hana. Now we have hope, said Grax. When we first met humans, we thought your ability to kill with precision instead of instinct made you dangerous. Now we understand it makes you wise. The shuttle to Earth was ready. As the humans and YOLOs boarded together, Jin-Ho looked out at his home planet below. The first contact had nearly led to war, but understanding had prevailed. The YOLOs had realized that humans kill with precision, not instinct. And in that realization, they had found not an enemy to fear, but a teacher to respect. It was not human weakness that had saved both species from war, but human strength, the strength to choose mercy over violence, understanding over fear. As the shuttle began its descent to Earth, Jin-Ho knew that both species had much to learn from each other. But the hardest lesson had already been taught, that true power lies not in the ability to take life, but in the wisdom to know when not to.